what is the American Suppressor Association, people who aren't familiar?
Yeah, so we're a nonprofit, and we focus primarily on advocating for firearm suppressors. So things that make guns less dangerously loud.
What are some misconceptions people have about suppressors that you encounter regularly?
First and foremost, people think they actually silence the noise of a gunshot, and that could not be further from the truth. You know, as you've seen here on the range today, right, like how did reality compare to your concept of suppressors before?
In the movies, it's like, pew, pew.
Yeah.
And then we get out here and it's like, oh, if you didn't have ear protection on, I think your ears would still be ringing a bit. You can still feel it in your chest. It's just not as severe.
It's less loud, right? Yeah, it's safer. It's way more pleasant and enjoyable, but by no means does it actually silence the noise of a gunshot. And these are some of the best suppressors that you can find in the world. Millions of Americans use them to protect their hearing. You know, again, gunshots are loud to the point where if you don't have hearing protection, any exposure to an unsuppressed gunshot can and will lead to permanent, irreversible hearing damage. You know, the idea that I should have to sacrifice my hearing because I want to exercise a constitutional right is just ludicrous. So what President Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill did was eliminate the transfer tax on suppressors, short barrel firearms, and a category called any other weapons, effective January 1st of 2026. So since 1934, in order to buy a suppressor, so hearing protection that you put on your gun, you've had to pay a $200 transfer tax. So 91 years of that tax, which is just, it's ridiculous, right? Imagine if you had to pay a poll tax. You know, imagine if you had to pay a tax every time you wanted to exercise free speech, you know, or freedom of religion. It's just not something that should happen. So the primary thing that we want is to remove these things from the National Firearms Act entirely. So in the House version of the Big Beautiful Bill, that actually got passed. It was full removal of suppressors from the National Firearms Act, which meant no tax and also no registration requirement. And if you look at the way that the NFA is built, it is just a taxing scheme, right? So currently, you still have to pay the $200 tax, and your item and your information is registered to you, but as a record of that tax being paid. So there is a federal registry called the NFRTR that tracks every tax that's paid, and we're trying to do away with that. And removing these things from the NFA would do just that. Now, that didn't happen in the One Big Beautiful Bill. Obviously, the parliamentarian stripped that provision out. We knew that was a likely outcome. So we had teed up zeroing out the tax because we knew that that would set us up to be able to challenge the constitutionality of these items in the National Firearms Act in court, which is something that we're actively working on with NRA, Second Amendment Foundation, and Firearms Policy Coalition.
Okay, I just got finished shooting an AR-15 for hours, but it has a suppressor on it. My mind is blown. My arm is not as sore as it normally is. It was a comfortable shooting experience. I'm so excited. I can never shoot the other way again. So, love silencers. This is a whole new world for me. If you guys want to learn more about silencer shops, you can go to silencershopfoundation.org today and check it out. It's truly awesome.
So, final thing here, just walk people through the current status for how many hoops you might have to jump through to get a suppressor, and then give us some more details on this registry, because I think a lot of people probably aren't aware that the government is keeping such a close eye on these products.
Yes, 91 years. It's the oldest federal gun registry that exists, at least in this country. Yeah, in order to purchase an NFA item, so again, that's suppressors, that's short barrel firearms, that's machine guns, that's explosives, and that's any other weapons, you have to file what's called a Form 4, which is basically the same form that you fill out to buy a rifle, pistol, or a shotgun. It actually uses the same exact background check, but there's not a legislative requirement to process these applications quickly. Thankfully now that the wait times have diminished to where on average you're seeing wait times in a number of days, but that can always change. When you purchase an NFA firearm, you're filling out that Form 4, you're paying that $200 tax, which again is gonna go away January 1. You're submitting fingerprints and passport style photos. People think, oh, it's some super secret squirrel background check. It's not. It's just because in the 30s, there was no federal background check. You actually have to notify local law enforcement, a chief law enforcement officer in your state, and tell them, hey, I'm buying these, which we think is a breach of tax law, because you're notifying them that you're of a tax that you're paying, which isn't permitted anywhere else. You've got to wait for the ATF to process it. So that's exactly what we're trying to do away with. To streamline this process, you'd still have to fill out the paperwork, you'd still have to pass a background check. So for all the anti-gunners out there saying, oh, you're trying to let people have silencers, you know, with no background check, it's false. They know it's false, right? It's willful ignorance, you know, at best. honestly, more often than not, it's just propaganda. And you see that, all the time, right? It's just, that's how they're hitting us here.
Awesome. Knox, we will leave it there. Thank you very much.
Cool. Thanks for coming out.
All right.